Kunjana-san, last Friday, you said something about behavioral changes. And you are probably saying that don't expect any behavioral changing through the development of Sati and Panya. Do you mind elaborating your comment?
Actually, the context was slightly different. I was saying that the development of the path is not about behavioral change, as some people seem to think it is. At that time, we were discussing, or someone was suggesting that, for example, not reacting strongly to sensed or impressions is something that should be practiced or developed, implying that it was part of the development of the path. But as we know, the development of the understanding of realities, that understanding does purify the mind, and it does gradually have the effect of ameliorating the unwholesome tendencies over time. But the rate at which that happens, or the extent to which certain unwholesome tendencies are reduced, apparently reduced or not, is all down to conditions. And so the point is that we should not, as you say, expect there to be some change of behavior. Undoubtedly there will, but just what shape that takes, no one knows, because it will depend so much on the individual. So the important thing is, and the only measure of the development of the path, is the extent to which conditioned realities become better known, not anything to do with one's behavior, whether one is a calmer person, for example, has more metta, gets less agitated, feels more comfortable, more calmness. None of those things are an indicator of the development of the path, and none of them are necessarily going to manifest in this lifetime. Who knows?
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I'm expecting to become more tidy person. Mm-hmm. My place is quite unkempt. So I'm expecting that my place would be clean and tidy if I develop more Sati and Panya.
So more clinging, more expecting, more stronger, more ideas of self instead of understanding Dhammas as anatta at each moment.
More like you were when you were a monk, right?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Some people study the Dhamma, they've told us, because they want to change their personality. So instead of leading to more understanding and more detachment from the idea of self, actually it just leads to more and more clinging to the personality that they would like so much to change.
Yeah.
Anyway, we all have the tendency to think in these terms, but it's good to see it and know it for what it is. It's a kind of expectation, or even sometimes it can amount to wrong view if it's strong enough for one to act upon. But these sort of thoughts and ideas are going to keep arising from time to time.
Okay, thank you very much. Kunjuna-san or Sarah, I have a minute question. It's not so related with Dhamma, but is it not true that Buddha's son, Rahula, took 10 years to attain his enlightenment after his novice ordination. I need this information for my book I'm working on.
Sorry, I didn't catch the question. Is it true the Buddha
The question is Rahula. Buddha's son.
Rahula. And Rahula.
Rahula.
Mhm. And the Rahula what?
The question is he, did he not take 10 years before attaining enlightenment? Have you heard such things about Rahula?
I can't answer that question.
Oh, okay.
John may know.
Yeah.
Tadao, I haven't heard that either. I haven't come across it recently, but a lot of that sort of information you can get from the Dictionary of Pali Proper Noun.
Yeah.
By Dr. Malasekara.
Yeah.
And it will be in some commentary notes somewhere.
Yeah.
But I can't answer that question either.
Okay. Thank you. Now I have a question about Dhamma. I have a question to Kusujin. Towards the end of last Friday discussion, I think you say something about the relationship between Sati and Panya. My question is, can Sati arise without Panya? Or can Panya arise without Sati? And so I'd like to know how Sati and Panya are interrelated. This is my question.
Ajahn,
We can't hear you, Ajahn. I'll just start by answering to Dal. So Sati arises with every Sobhana Chitta, every Kusala Chitta, every Kusala Vipaka Chitta, every Kiriya Chitta of the Arahats. But Panya doesn't arise with every Kusala Chitta. So for Panya to arise, Sati has to arise. It has to condition it. But for Sati, Panya doesn't have to arise.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'll just add to that. When there's Sati arising with other kusala other than Satipatthana, then of course the Sati is not of the level of the Sati of Satipatthana.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe I'll ask more. Sarah John, I thought that's what Tadao was asking. So what's the significance of Sati in the development of wisdom?
Sati is the proximate condition. It's condition for Panya to arise. Without Sati guarding and being mindful to be kusala at that moment, Panya cannot arise. So they have to develop together. So that's why when we read about Sati Sampajanya, it has to be the development of Sati and understanding. Without Sati, there can never be any Panya at all, not even for a moment.
And its role, if you ask it, is to co-arise with Panya. So I think there's a general impression abroad, not in this group, but else perhaps outside, that awareness itself can be developed just on its own. There is a kind of kusala that is awareness. And when this is developed, it leads to understanding and insight. But that is not the case. It co-arises with panya. And its role is just, it's one of those necessary mental factors. It arises with every kusala chitta.
Thank you.
So nobody can control whether a sati arises with or without panya. It all depends on conditions. We cannot control the accompaniment of panya.
Whether panya arises with sati or not, you mean?
Yeah.
And on your other point, I just looked in the dictionary about Rahula. It doesn't mention anything that I could see about 10 years. I haven't heard this, but it may be
Strange.
I don't really mind about it, how long or short. Or
I've heard about it a long time ago, and indicating how difficult it is to attain enlightenment. It takes years.
yes,
Even him
all
being,
depending on conditions and accumulation.
yeah.
Whether 5 minutes or 5 eons or
Yeah.
kalpas, or all depending on accumulations and conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes Tadao, it does say in the text, in no long time did they attain to arahatta, but that no long time can sometimes be, in our time, quite a long time.
Yeah.
But it was, he was arahatta when he died. I know that part. And also, he died before the Buddha. He didn't die afterwards. So he was relatively young, we can say. Anyway, so as Sarah has probably said, okay, there doesn't seem to be some information in there, but I suspect there may be somewhere in some commentarial reference, potentially. I'll keep an eye out for it for you, and okay. I'll let you know down the track if I come across anything.
Okay, thank you.
It would seem, though, that Sarah's point about accumulations and conditions, you can talk about one lifetime of Rahula and how long during that lifetime it might have been until the attainment of arahatship, but really we don't know how many lifetimes, what conditions were arising. And it could be very misleading, I think, to start suggesting or implying that it took 10 years, let's say, just pick a number, any number, 10 years to attain arahatship. You'd have to qualify it with in this life, also indicating that we don't know how many eons prior.
10 years, it would be very quick, wouldn't it, actually?
And we also know that the greater the paramis, like for the Buddha as a bodhisattva, the greater the time it takes. And for the great disciples, even though it may seem like for Sariputta so quick in this life, but how many countless lifetimes, how many aeons of lifetimes to develop the paramis to that level. So I think it's a good point.
And when I heard Tadao ask that question, I believe he was just referring to this life. I'm sure he had the understanding, of course, that it would have taken, well, billions of lifetimes to attain to enlightenment. But what I understood, yes, and some people can possibly misinterpret that, but what I heard Tadao saying was in this lifetime. And of course, that will immediately mean that there are, millions of lifetimes before that time. That what happens in the last life was merely the tip of the iceberg of a lot of consideration and a lot of being around wise teachers, like as he no doubt would have been with the Bodhisattva in other lifetimes. And even the Bodhisattva, we know that when he received his, we can put it, I'm just trying to think of the word at the moment, but anyway, he said that he would become a Buddha. That was 4 Asankhya's and 100,000 kappas ago. And at that stage, this Buddha at that time, when he met Sumedha, he was a Janalabhi. He could have attained to Arahata even at that time. So, and then on top of it, of course, he didn't have the level of parami that he needed to become a Samma Sambuddha, which was his earnest wish, as an adhitthana. And Dipankara gave him that assurance that in 4 Asankhya's and 100,000 kappas, well, he didn't actually say the time, but he said he would become a future Buddha, but it did take. And there are many different types of Buddhas also. This particular Buddha, Gautama, was what's known as a Panya Buddha. So there are many different, all Buddhas are different. They have different ways of, probably no doubt, they're all uniquely different. Yes, they are some Buddhas, but they also are very different.
Yeah. Thank you, Sundara. I appreciate that. I didn't mean to suggest for 1 minute that Tadao was not aware of the eons prior and the accumulations, etc. Prior, I think my comment came more from a sense that if people hear that or read it who don't have the background or some understanding of the Dhamma, that this is not something that one can set out to at the beginning of one's lifetime to accomplish without an understanding of the Dhamma and anatta and accumulations, etc. One could be misled when one could find themselves misunderstanding the comment that it took so X number of years in this lifetime. But I hear what you're saying, and I certainly did not mean to. And if it came across that way, my apologies to Tadao. I realize that he would know completely that it's a result of accumulations and conditions.
No, thanks for that, Anne. However, just perhaps an addendum to that, people today can interpret the Dhamma in whatever way they like, and they do.
Yeah.
So they may, you hear of people within the Mahasi tradition saying, the Buddha only said 7 days or 7 weeks or 7 years or something like this, and somehow they think, oh, well, if I strive hard enough, I can do it in that time. Of course, we know that has to be put in context with all sorts of aspects of Dhamma, and he was no doubt talking to exceptionally wise people, and in that particular context, it would have been quite relevant. So I think, as we know, it's so easy to misinterpret what we read, and that's happened today. And even getting back to what Tadao was talking about earlier on, we talked about Sati, which has the function of remembering to be kusala. Now, as we know, in Thailand or in any other country in the world, amongst many European bhikkhus, they just see Sati as some sort of remembering, looking. Yeah, it's got a very anemic meaning as they interpret it today. It's just to remember, to be careful, and we know that Sati is much more than that. It is kusala. That's the most important thing. And of course, many people, it seems to me, do not have any idea what kusala is about. They think they do. So like these sort of misunderstandings can permeate so many different aspects of the teachings, whether it's about, become enlightened in one lifetime, or about Sati, or about 153 other things within the Dhamma. And as we know, we're very fortunate to have Tanajan to help us navigate our way, through that, through all the different types of misunderstandings that we can have about the Dhamma. And if we have the right accumulations, we may be able to, there are conditions potentially for us to understand the intricacies and the delicacies and the subtleties of Dhamma which are not easily penetrated or understood without the assistance of a very wise person.
Sundara, John or Sarah, so why is it phrased that way in the text? I know that it has been phrased that way somewhere, that Sati is remembering to do kusala. Why is it phrased that way?
Well, I would interpret that because then you have to have an understanding of what kusala is, and many people have a kind of a distorted understanding about what kusala is. They think they know. So that's why the Dhamma can be very, very tricky in a way. It can mislead people. So yeah, it's just about understanding correctly. And you know, it's like I'm thinking when I mentioned those bhikkhus in the Buddha time, when the Buddha was speaking to them about 7 days or 7 weeks or 7 years or whatever, he was speaking in a specific time to a specific situation. But just to, also, I would add that that word sati, I believe, even in the Buddha's time, because the Buddha had to use the vernacular of that particular time, and no doubt sati meant to remember, or something very similar to that. I would say it means to remember, but not necessarily in a kusala way. But the Buddha had to use a language, which was Magadhi, if you like, at that time. And he then was able to amplify, if you like, the meaning of that word around his own teachings. So he had to use language, and little by little people no doubt began to understand that it had to be kusala, not just remembering. So yeah, there are all sorts of variables, I think, on that. Kun Sukim, perhaps those Sarah and Jonathan might like to elaborate also.
I will just make a brief comment that the being not forgetful of kusala or of attending to the object is a function of sati, one of the functions, and another function is guarding the sense doors. But we have to understand these functions in the sense of as a co-arising mental factor. So just like, for example, pasa, translated as contact, has the function of contacting the object, but it co-arises with the citta that experiences the object. So it may sound as though it's a precursor, or it precedes the actual moment of kusala, but it doesn't. So it's just a description of the function, and sati is necessary with every kusala citta.
Thank you, John.
Let's see if Ajahn is here now. We couldn't hear you before, Ajahn. Are you here?
I'm sorry, I couldn't get the word well because it's broken.
Okay.
But I try to catch it. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Yes.
Very well, or just very?
Quite well, yes. It's
clear,
quite,
Ajahn.
no problem.
And
Okay.
you're having
We can
difficulty hearing us, is that it?
So Sukin was asking about sati and its function and the way that it conditions understanding and what it means to be remembers to be kusala and to guard from akusala. So I think he was asking more about.
Yeah. So many words we have heard, but not many that we can understand it clearly, right? We heard about chanda, sati, and so on. But what about the understanding of that which is now appearing? If there is the understanding of that which is now appearing, there can be the understanding of whatever we are talking about. For example, sati. If we don't understand this moment, how can we know whether sati is there or not? Or what is sati? But when there is the beginning of understanding, that which is now appearing, there can be more understanding of more words later. For example, Sati, what is it? See, if you don't know that at moment of seeing, and we learn from the book, there is no Sati. But why? No understanding of that which just arises to experience an object. That's all. And when any reality does not appear yet, how can there be the understanding of that very reality as no one and no self, only a nature of that which arises so rare to be known, that it experiences, or that which cannot experience? At this moment of understanding, is there Sati? See, if there is no understanding of this moment, we think about Sati. But when there is the understanding of this moment, that there is not just seeing, there's hearing and thinking and beginning to consider that which is now appearing. What about that? It is not seeing, but it's different moments later. Understanding, beginning to understanding that little by little, the difference between the moment of seeing and the moment of understanding. We can see that they're different. And when there is understanding, there is not just only the reality which understands. There must be other realities conditioned this understanding to arise. So we learn little by little about what we have heard about now, this moment, at moment of seeing, no understanding. It just arises to see. But after hearing about it, there is some understanding of it. That is different moment. And what are there? So we heard about it as there is Sati and Panya at that level of understanding. But they do not show up. But we learn to understand the difference between moment of seeing and moment of understanding. So we begin to understand the reality of Sati clearer at the moment when seeing is there, and when there is understanding is there. Different one and different conditions, different jetasikas arising. Not just the story of Sati and try to find out at that moment of wanting to find out is not Sati. See, we learn the word, but we do not learn about the moment when it's there, little by little, to know that actually what we are talking about is this very moment. At moment of understanding, it's not the moment of seeing, not the moment of hearing. See, little by little to understand, beginning to understand the nature of that which is now as different reality. Seeing is not moment of panya, right understanding, not the moment of sati. Little by little.
So, Achan, actually, it just shows how little understanding there is. And because these, even after you have explained and pointed out, such questions will continue to arise. It's just that there's no understanding.
And we learn to understand different cetasikas, little by little.
Yes,
We
we forget that
understand.
it's all about this moment, and just getting an explanation is not the understanding. It's different from understanding, and understanding can only understand when the reality appears. And as you say, once that understanding is developed, then all what's written in the text, all the descriptions will be understood.
And I think a similar question as you asked about sati would apply to, say, virya, effort or energy, because it's described as the energy to arouse kusala that is not yet arisen and to maintain kusala that has been arisen. And so a casual reader may think that there is such a form of kusala as right effort to be applied, as something separate from the actual moment of kusala in question. In this case, of course, we are talking about the development of awareness and understanding, but it's not the case. The virya arises together with the kusala citta, that it is relating to that, and it has to be understood in that context.
And when understanding develops and gets used to understanding more about realities, it becomes more apparent that at such moments there is right effort, not any thought of doing anything at all, and that Sati is guarding and being aware at those moments. So it's only through the understanding that the nature of Sati or wholesome effort or chanda or any of these other factors becomes more apparent. So it's not about the words or the terms or the definitions, but the characteristic that becomes more apparent through the development of understanding.
And prior to this, I thought, and I'm still not sure, that, for example, in the examples given in the, I think, Milinda Panha or somewhere about Sati, different examples of Sati in different situations, that this remembering was somewhat as a reminder, which acts as by Pakatu Panisaya for different people and in different situations. For example, if one was prompted by the suggestion that one is no more a child, and at that moment, that can be a condition just to be more mindful of one's behavior. And that's how I read it before this.
I think I appreciated the point that you made there, Jonathan, because it's like any word can be misinterpreted. You know, as you mentioned, like virya or chanda or whatever, any of those chaitasikas, especially when they are kusala chaitasikas and they're read otherwise. Tana Janka, I would like to ask a question. How can it best be known that Sati is kusala?
Sorry, I couldn't hear very well. What happened?
Okay, I'll ask again, Tana Janka. How can it best be known that Sati is kusala?
Again, please.
How can
Sundar is asking Ajahn about Sati and how is it known that Sati is kusala?
Okay. There are so many different realities. If there's no understanding of each as it is, the word kusala and akusala, what does it mean? We just give the name to the nature which harms, which is not wholesome. For example, anger. Is it good? Does anyone like it? And what is the result of it when it is more than just very little and when it's so strong? We don't have to use any word as kusala and akusala. But since its nature is that which doesn't bring any wholesome result or anything good at all, what would we say? If we don't use the word akusala in Pali, we can use any word in one's own language to make it known as that is what we are thinking or talking about, that reality which harms oneself at the moment when it's there. That's why no one like to have it at all. When it's so very little, it changed the moment from the way it usually is to not like irritated, just a very little. See, is that good? So we can use any word, but we cannot change the reality at all. It's there to be known as it is, to be understood that it's not self. No one can make it arise, but there are so many different realities conditioned to be from moment to moment unknown. But the Buddha enlightened the truth. That's why he taught us about the absolute truth of everything that can be understood little by little until the true nature of it, which is now arising and following, can show up, appears to be known as it is, beginning from hearing about whether it's true or not, that what is now is conditioned to arise, and no more. But the succession of the rapidity of the arising and falling away is covered up with ignorance, by ignorance and attachment, see, so attached to whatever is there, no matter that is gone, and the other just follow instantly. Who knows? That's why it looks like the same thing all the time as object of attachment. And we talk about that. When there's no understanding of this truth, is it good? Or we can use the word kusala in Pali. So it's the nature of the reality, not just we call it this or try to change it or to make it different, but to understand its nature when it's there. Irritation, see? Seeing just the dust on something. What is there? See, so fast, very little, so very tiny, it's gone. Who knows that it's not there anymore? But the idea of something that is dirty, or whatever we think, is there. Keep on thinking about that as it's there. But actually, different moment, different ones, all the time. Nothing is permanent, unknown, until the enlightenment of the Buddha. And then he taught about his enlightenment, about the truth, the absolute truth of what is there appearing. At that moment when there's no understanding, is it good? Or we use the word kusala or wholesome. And when there's no understanding of the truth, is that good, wholesome, or kusala? So it's the nature of the reality, no matter what we use the word. But the nature of it cannot be changed at all.
So, Ajahn, is what you're saying the same as saying knowing when there's sati and when there's no sati?
I couldn't hear very well. I don't know what happened.
Ajahn,
Please.
what I'm saying is that what you just described, is it the same as you often remind us, is knowing the difference between moments when there is sati and when there is no sati? That's when there is understanding of sati.
And what about the other factors, the other realities, feeling and sanya and cetana and chivitindriya? Who knows? Just talk about sati, but what about the other reality?
So what you're saying is that the chitta itself is kusala, so all the chetasikas will be kusala or akusala when it's akusala. So it's not just one reality that's known, but it can be anything.
I couldn't hear very well, but I try to answer because I think that you're talking about the other realities which are not there, cannot be known either, right? So we just talk about one reality, sati. But what about cetana? What about vedana? What about sankhara, khanda, other cetasika, chivitindriya, and so on? See, that's why we learn to understand the moment from moment to moment that they are different. Seeing is not thinking. Why different? There must be conditions. And what are there, as we learn from the words of the Buddha? There must be other realities which arises with citta. They all can experience an object, but not as the chief of experiencing only the characteristic of that which appears. That's why it cannot see. It's not that which sees, but it's that which like or dislike, that which is seen, because it arises together with citta and experience the same object. But they cannot be like citta. They have their own functions. One is like, the other is dislike, and the other is cetana, and the other. That's why we know from the words of the teaching. But as long as they do not appear, what appears is only seeing. Now, who knows how many cetasikas arising with seeing? And the object is there, unknown, as it's only the object which is seen. But we think a lot about that later, not the moment of seeing. So the cetasikas, the mental factor, that which arises together in citta, makes the moment different from seeing to thinking and so on. And when it's right thinking, it's different from wrong thinking. See, so what makes that different, right and wrong? There must be conditions. The mental factor, the cetasikas are different too. And there are so many wholesome cetasika and many moments of unwholesome. We learn little by little to begin to understand the truth of that which is now appearing as different moment. Otherwise, there must be the idea about things and not understanding the truth, not go further than that at all, to have more understanding, more which is clearer understanding about that which is now appearing. Because feeling can begin to be the object of understanding, not object of ignorance as before. Because usually there is pleasant feeling, no understanding. It's me. I crave, I like it so much. I would like to have that again. See, no understanding of what are there as different realities, cetasikas, and citta, which is the chief of experiencing an object. That the all cetasikas cannot experience it as citta, but it that which experience the citta cannot understand. And this is the truth, the absolute truth, to learn about letting go, wrong understanding, and attachment, clinging to it as it's so very permanent, but it's not.
And on your question, Sukin, about whether when there's more understanding of what is good, what is useful, no matter what word is used, and what doesn't bring any good at all. So as we know from the book, Sati arises in the first case and not in the other. But of course, when there's trying to understand Sati or trying to know if this is Sati, then of course there's no Sati at those moments because it's akusala, it's clinging, and it depends on the accumulation at any moment and whether understanding has developed enough for the characteristic of Sati to appear and be known. So we know it must be there, but it depends on the understanding whether it appears at any time. Quite different from trying to find it.
And I think the same applies to all the path factors, not only sati, but virya, samadhi, vitaka, and even panya. It's not clear to me to what extent and at what stage these mental factors begin to appear and be known, because it seems to me that when panya is being developed and there is awareness, for example, of visible object or sound, then the most likely characteristic to appear will be the characteristic of the object that's being experienced at that moment. So I think there's the tendency to perhaps think that these different mental factors need to be each developed on their own or in conjunction with others. But the fact is they do develop as understanding develops and as kusala, as there are moments of kusala, and kusala itself in one form, in whatever form is developed, so the different accompanying mental factors will develop. And it's not a matter of having to give them special attention, but it's useful to know what they are and that they have different functions and that they're all essential to the arising of the different kinds of kusala.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Jonathan. That gives a lot more, I think, gives a lot more clarity to that question. You know, that we're often, I suppose, in our attempts to try to have a better understanding, which we know we can't make happen, we try to kind of make things clearer in ways which perhaps are not so helpful.
And that's the wrong path, the trying to work it out or trying to make it clearer or trying to pinpoint, because the self is there unseen, always trying, always wishing, trying to get it, but it's not the natural development of understanding, which, as we know, has to develop from firm pariyatti to the direct understanding of dhammas in its own time, by its own conditions. And there's bound to be doubt, there's bound to be wrong view, there's bound to be clinging. It's so natural, but these are dhammas to be understood as well. All anatta. Last week, I think, Ajahn, it reminds me, you were mentioning that the true respect to the Buddha or to those who have taught us or to the teachings is through the careful study, which is not the book study, but the understanding of realities now. And this is the way to pay respect. It's not by going to a special place like a temple or praising this or that person, but it is through the study and the understanding of realities right now. Perhaps you'd like to add a little bit more about paying respect by studying. Did you hear me, Ajahn?
I can hear you and Kun Jonathan so very well, but the others, it's broken.
Right.
I
Okay.
could hear very well, but I think that I can get it. Not all, but it's enough. But your voice and Kun Jonathan's were very clear.
I was just speaking about what you mentioned last week, Ajahn, about paying respect by studying carefully. And people may have the idea of studying books or learning details, but the study is the understanding right now, no matter the reality is seeing or attachment or annoyance or hardness that is touched. The paying respect is the understanding what appears now. And this is the greatest way to pay respect to the Buddha or to you or to anyone, through the understanding at this moment. Would you say more about paying respect?
Mm-hmm. And there can be conditions to become more respect too. When there's no understanding at all, when we use the word I respect the Buddha, it doesn't have any meaning because no understanding of his words, the truth of what he had enlightened at all. But when there's more understanding, no matter through reading, considering, they can be the beginning of what is meant by understanding. and who understands better than anyone else in the world. And that is the beginning of more respecting little by little to the truth of his word. Even Buddha respect the truth because no one can change it. It's so true. So when we pay respect to anyone, we pay respect. We respect the wholesome or goodness that and the best of goodness is right understanding, which can never arise at all when there's no hearing about the word of truth about this moment as it is. Otherwise, it's only idea all the time, no further understanding what is meant by each word that it is now at this very moment. But ignorance covers up so long, so it needs what we can say, viriya, see. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clear, Ajahn. We can hear you, no problem.
So we begin to understand what is meant by what we heard. Viriya, see, it needs more time and and other realities too. So that can be the beginning of understanding, even thinking about the nature of it before it can appear. But when we talk about sati, if it's not moment of satipatthana, can anyone understand sati? Because it's there, see, from not understanding hardness as just that which is hard, only that moment, only when it's there. And sati is a moment when being aware of that, but no word. It's there with beginning to develop right understanding of nothing there. So the characteristic of sati show up to know, to be known, that it's different from other moment when sati does not appear. Because we can talk about all realities, but does they appear to right understanding or just appear as usual to ignorance and attachment? And this is the difference. To begin even moment of sati, which does not appear yet, but the difference between moment of understanding that which is hard now, as it's only when it's there as object, and that which experiences is there too, beginning to understanding the nature of that which experience, which is different from that which is the object of experiencing, but that object cannot experience. All of this just is the explanation of one moment of touching. But at that very moment, right understanding of the characteristic, the true nature of that which appears, begin to develop, to let go the other object because it's not there until it's clear and clear and clear until it appears only one, nothing at all. Is that true? Just begin to know how far the experience of the truth has to be such. And now this moment, it does not appear as such moment yet. That's why the understanding is not moment of understanding. So they can be the beginning of the moment of understanding. But to know that it's not me has to go on and on. Otherwise, all are covered up with ignorance and attachment, just like now. That's why the understanding is there. No self, there must be the clear understanding of that nature as no self too. Otherwise, it's still, I understand this, I don't understand that. See, still I. From years and years at moment of seeing Vijnana Khanda, all five khandas. So we can talk about any words from the text, from what we and the difference, but not understand the moment which is now. What is there? Seeing is there. And Buddha taught about seeing. Thinking is there. And Buddha taught about thinking, but only words. But it is the beginning to begin to see reality as not self, but not yet anyone as it is, as not self.
And
That's
this is,
why the development of understanding, if it's still on the level of intellectual understanding, thinking of this and that, no moment of beginning to understand that which is the nature of reality appears little by little, only one at a time, depending on conditions. But when it is satipatthana, another level, the characteristic of sati is there, no doubt. And panya is there. See, as it is, very little and strong, more enough, stronger, clearer, little by little, letting go naturally by conditions. That's why it takes time, and the understanding of the reality is as virya is there too, and chanda and so on. But it is clear when only one appears as object. If it does not appear as object yet, only that which appears as object can be object of better understanding, clearer understanding, little by little.
and this is the point, that they're just dhammas, and why the respect is to the truth and to the understanding of dhammas. Otherwise, it's always the idea of one that has awareness or has wisdom or the wise one, and not the appreciation that it's the qualities and the truth that is to be respected. And if there are no conditions for direct understanding of realities now, then the characteristic of sati cannot appear. It can only be thought about, and there's bound to be doubt, as you mentioned. But it just depends on accumulations and conditions as to when and how the understanding develops. No point thinking and wishing and expecting and trying, because that just leads to the wrong path again and again.
Sarah, it's respect to the truth, or particularly the understanding of the truth?
To the understanding of the truth, to the revealing of the truth, yes. So like when paying respect to the Buddha, for example, it is to the qualities of understanding and the revealing of the truth, and the fact that the realities are anatta, that has become apparent, not to the person or the being. Otherwise, it just conditions more clinging to this or that person. It's not the true respect of the truths themselves that are revealed.
Or one could say that it's the same thing, because there can't be respect to the truth without understanding of the truth. And the degree of respect is commensurate with the degree of understanding.
Sarah, when you spoke just now about the revealing of the truth is the true understanding of the truth. We talk about the truth a lot. We talk about dhammas a lot, but it's the revealing of them that is what is so valuable.
And what is to be respected. And
to be respected, yeah.
For example, we may listen and hear about seeing an invisible object, but if it doesn't make any sense, then there can't be any respect for the revealing of the truth, or to the truth, or whatever words we use. So it's only, as Sukhin said, when there is understanding and the truth becomes more apparent or is revealed, no matter through books or listening here or whatever means. And this is why we can see that actually it's the Dhamma that is to be respected, the teaching of the Buddha, no matter whether Ajahn helps us or anyone helps us, or whether we read this book or that book. Actually, it's the truths as revealed by the Buddha's great wisdom that is really the object of respect.
Yes.
Just, I'd like to add to a point there, because I think I know a little bit where this is coming from. In the Ratana Sutta, we have the phrase, waro waranyu, warado waraharo. So here we're speaking about the Buddha. He's the waro, he's the most excellent. Waro waranyu, he's the knower of the most excellent. Waro waranyu warado, he's the giver of the most excellent. Waro waranyu warado waraharo, he's the bringer of the most excellent. So I see a very strong interconnection between all of those factors. So be the person, so the revealer, or the knower, or the bringer. They're all very strongly interrelated. In my mind, there's no question about that.
In truth, what we learn from the Buddha's teachings is that in reality there is no Buddha, there was no Buddha. So it is to those qualities and the great wisdom and the truths that were penetrated by the great wisdom that is to be respected, no matter which words are used. Like we can thank Sukhin for his helpful comments, or Ajahn, but actually it's, in truth, there's no Sukhin, there's no Ajahn, there's no being at all. So the real study is the study of Dhammas, not of people, not of the Buddha, not of anyone. So they're just words that are used for convenience to point to the truth that actually at this moment there are just different realities, those that experience and those that don't experience anything, so that gradually there's more and more detachment, more and more giving up of the idea of someone and self and being.
Sarah, but thinking in terms of people is inevitable. And for example, we know that all this comes from the Buddha. So we know, we make that association between the teachings and the person who taught it. So I'm wondering whether the idea of a person can be the object of respect.
I think it's more useful to consider the qualities, like, as we've often said, when paying respect to the Buddha, what is it that actually one pays respect to? It's not to the idea of a person or a being, but to the metta and to the compassion and to the understanding, because a person, a Buddha, is just a term, a conventional use, but actually there never was a Buddha and there isn't a Buddha now. So that's why it's actually respect to the Dhamma, to the teaching, and to the qualities that made it possible for the Dhamma to be revealed.
Right. Even when we're thinking about qualities, at that time it's still just thinking, it's not understanding the characteristic. So even while we're thinking that there's respect to the wisdom, the compassion, and all the good qualities, is just a concept that's the object at that time. So yeah, there's no question about concept being the object of those that particular chitta we call respect. And but I'm wondering that the concept of a Buddha, a person with all those qualities, can that also be the object of respect?
That's why it comes down to the study of realities now. Like if there's no understanding of what
Sarah,
is,
I'd like
for example.
Sarah, I'd like you to answer that question that Kunsagin has posed.
I'm answering to Kin's question now. So it comes back to the understanding, the study of reality now. If there is no understanding now that metta is a quality, a wholesome quality that brings good rather than bad, and it doesn't belong to me or you, there cannot be any understanding that metta for anyone, it's the same. It's just a quality, not my metta, that arises and passes away instantly. So when paying respect to another who has a lot of kindness, we would say, actually the respect is to that quality because it doesn't belong to anyone.
I don't believe you answered that question, Sarah, that Kunsukin posed.
It may not have been answered in the way you like, Sundara, but I answered it as I understood it, that it comes back to the understanding of Dhamma at this very moment. Otherwise, it will just be thinking about this person or that person and their metta and so on. But without this study right now, there cannot be any understanding of what those qualities are. So that's why the study has to be now and of Dhamma, and the respect to the Buddha, for example, can only be through the study of realities, through the understanding of the qualities as anatta, right from the beginning.
So would you tell us a little bit about Buddhanusati and how you understand that?
About what?
He's saying Buddhanusati.
So it is about, as I mentioned, it's about paying respect to the qualities of the Buddha, not to the being or the person at all, to the great metta, the great compassion, the great understanding. And that's why I said without the study or the understanding of metta now, or the understanding of compassion as anatta, or any understanding of realities, of seeing now, of visible object now, there cannot be any paying respect to those qualities. There cannot be any understanding of what is meant by Buddhanusati.
So you seem to be saying this. So you seem to be saying there, Sarah, that there's no place really, from what I hear you saying, for respect to the Buddha as an individual, conventionally speaking.
It's not to a being or a person. It's just to the qualities. And perhaps Sujan would like to add more.
Yes, I think that, you could ask the question, how can one pay respect to a deceased being who, for whom there is no longer any existence? It doesn't make sense. But the qualities of that person can be the subject of respect because they are realities. The same realities arise or can arise now as then.
It's the same if we appreciate, for example, Ajan's sharing or contribution. It is to the qualities of kindness and understanding, not to the person or being. And it's an important point because otherwise it just conditions more clinging and more thinking about a person or being, not understanding of dhammas.
Do we respect Lopa? Do we respect ignorance? That's why even respecting should be understood. What is it? Respect what? What should be the object of respect? See, anyone who think about respect, pay respect to goodness, right? Do not pay respect to the bad reality of evil at all. And who has such great goodness, virtues, and what is meant by great, that which is above. Nobody can compare with him, that person, or the great understanding at all. Because without virtues, that person cannot be the greatest one, the Buddha. So Buddha is the great understanding, the greatest understanding of the truth. Should that be respect, the object of respect, that anyone pay respect with sincere respect, not just follow the pattern or tradition to respect this and that, but to understand the worth, the value, the precious thing which should be respected, the great understanding. So the word Buddha means understanding the truth, which is covered up, not appear as it is at all because of ignorance. So how great it is to understand the truth of whatever is now as it is, which cannot be known at all if there is no enlightenment of the one who developed parami to the degree that it can enlighten the truth of whatever is there, beyond expectation, beyond anything at all, beyond any person. And that's why the respect is the moment of understanding the word of the truth from the enlightened one. That is so true as no one can think about it like him or that he had enlightened at all. And that is great respect, beginning from understanding the word from his enlightenment. That's why at moment of understanding any moment, it's moment of thinking about the great virtues of the enlightened one. Do you respect something more than this? Or nothing more than understanding, which can be developed little by little and little by little to understand what is meant by enlightenment, the absolute truth as it is, even it arises and falls away so very rapidly just right now. Who knows? Only the person, the one who had developed panya, right understanding, and goodness, virtues enough to condition such a moment as such with the object above then. No one can compare, uncomparable. So how much respect is the moment of how much understanding is there of the truth. Which one knows that without him, without his enlightenment, without his teachings, the truth is covered on and on as usual, eons and eons more until the next Buddha. And who knows? Because now we lived in the time of the teaching of the Buddha, but we couldn't know whether he had met him some life before or not at all. But his word is still there. So even he's no more there, Parinibbana, but the truth is there from him as long as anyone can understand it. But if no one can understand his word, the word of truth is lost, covered up again, on and on and on and on. That's why each word should be studied carefully, respectfully. That's why in Tipitaka it says that investigate the meaning of the word and the truth of the word at this very moment and the truth of the Buddha's word, because he knew better than anyone. Even Sariputta Mokkallana, the great disciple, had to come to see him to ask about just something that we think that is so not important, but because of the respect of his wisdom, they knew that they couldn't have as much understanding as him. So even just a little manner that we think, oh, why should they have to go to see the Buddha? But since they knew their panya is so great that no other respect is to the respect of the Buddha, to the Buddha. So they went respectfully to ask, no matter if what any word or anything or any event or any object there, because There can be much more than they can think about. So it's just like now, respect his word, each word, Dhamma, see, not enough at all. No matter we talk about in different ways, until it can condition moment of understanding what is there now, little by little, to see, to understand that which is there as object. If it's not the object, how can there be the clear understanding or beginning to experience the true nature of that which is now, as he taught? Seeing is a moment conditioned to arise and see and then gone, only that. Each citta, each moment is different by different factors, mental factors and other factors, paccaya. To condition moment of letting go, that which is covered up and was taken for self or things from life to life, very, very strong. Not easy to get rid, not easy to let go, not easy to wear it away, not easy to wash it out, little by little. That's why respect each word, and we can study just that word clearly. For example, when we talk about Sati, when we talk about Viriya, when we talk about Chanda, or whatever we are talking about, they do not appear. So they are there. But as they do not appear, how can there be the understanding of the nature as they are? Because even that which appears now is not understood as it is yet. So how can that which do not appear at all could be known or understood clearer? Because even now, the seeing, see, who has the clear understanding of seeing as it is? Not yet. As long as it's not vipassana, as long not it is the tipatthana, which begins to understand the different moment and understand what is meant by sati, because sati is there, appears as it's there, being aware of that which is there, not just like before, seeing and then gone, just only the ideas about that which is seen from life to life. So this is showing respect to the Buddha, to study his word respectfully, carefully, to understand that even that which is now understood, is it enough? Investigate that word, consider it, reflecting on it, of the word and the meaning of that which is now appearing, and to the Buddha's teaching, each word. How much or how little, or whether it's clear and clearer, little by little. So natural. And
This
that's
is this is why it's only the more understanding of the truth, the more respect there is to the Buddha, to the qualities. If there's no understanding at all, people think they're showing respect to the Buddha, but it's not respect because there's no understanding at all of the truth he taught.
And the standard form of recollection of the Buddha, Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Sama Sambuddho, etc. Each of those words refers to a particular aspect of the virtues of the Buddha, his knowledge and the way the knowledge manifests and so forth. And without knowing what those words mean and what they're intended to refer to, the mere recitation, of course, of that and those set of words itself has no value and is not a way of respect. So respect is not the act of showing respect. Respect is actually when the Buddha's virtues come to mind and are recollected naturally. So it's by, as I said earlier, the degree to which there can be respect for the Buddha. Depends on the degree to which understanding has been developed. And the person of more developed understanding has the greater respect for the Buddha.
I think Azita is wishing to add some comments and questions. Go ahead, Azita.
Sorry, I've been laying low. I'm not feeling so well. I've injured my back. Anyway, it was just, Ajahn said, it's the great virtues that we call the Buddha, or no, the great virtues that we call the Buddha. And then Sukin has said something about, but we have to know the different virtues individually. So I've agreed with that. But I think what Ajahn has said, I think, is quite relevant. And then you were just saying something as well, John, about knowing each virtue or something like that. So can't hear you.
As Ajahn said, the meaning of Buddha is actually great understanding or truth itself. So this is what is the respect.
I've found that very, very, very relevant, very good.
The person who has no understanding of Dhamma, but nevertheless pays respect to the Buddha in the way that we've seen people doing by offering incense and so forth. That is not the true meaning of being respectful of the Buddha and his teaching.
And also I would like to add, because when Ajahn just now said something like, it's not like what the people do out of tradition. I mean, you can see that even for us who have had some understanding, even when we are reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha, and like I was saying earlier, it's inevitable that we think in terms of the person, but it's so easy when we think about the Buddha himself as a person, it becomes the object of attachment immediately.
This is the point why it's so important to stress it's the qualities. Like Ajahn said, if there's no understanding, you just say, I respect the Buddha. It's meaningless. It's just clinging and attachment. And it's the same, not just with the Buddha, but if we're praising each other's good qualities, it is the qualities. Otherwise, it is the object of attachment again and again. And that's why Ajahn often says when people appreciate what she says so much, it's not my words, they're the Buddha's words. It's the truth that was revealed by the Buddha that is really the object of the greatest respect. So it's all about understanding and seeing the danger of the clinging again and again to someone, something. And that's why it is the understanding of reality now, which leads to the development of respect naturally. Anything else, Azita? Hope you feel better.
No, nothing at the moment. I've taken medication for my back, so I'm a bit hazy. So I was having a little doze while
I just saw you were busy writing notes, so I thought you might like to bring it up.
No, thank you.
Last week, Tadawa, you brought up some comments about lifestyle and simple life, and we discussed that actually the simplicity of the lifestyle doesn't depend on whether one has no chairs in the living room and lives in a simple building, or whether one has a luxurious lifestyle, but it depends on the understanding. like so often people think that the complication in life is depending on how many children one has, or how much one works, or how many houses one has to look after. But actually, the complication is the clinging at this moment or any moment. Did you have anything else to bring up on that topic, Tadao?
I think it's a Japanese tradition or culture to develop Dhamma. One should have very simple life. And I very much somehow agree with this idea, and I try not to complicate my life. And in a sense, the simpler the better. It's my idea. And it's nothing to, it may not to do with actual development of Sati and Panya, but I love the idea. That's all I can say.
The danger of that is that if things are not simple, if one hasn't succeeded in simplifying one's life, one may think, well, these are not good conditions for developing understanding. And that would be a mistake, right?
No. That's the wrong understanding. But it's nothing wrong to lead a simple life. And if one is pleased with that kind of lifestyle, yeah, it's sort of okay.
But the Tao, as Sarah was saying, the complication is the attachment. So if you're pleased and you are happy to, and you feel that it's better to live a simple life, that's attachment, and that's the complication.
Yes, it's attachment.
But also, if one thinks that living a simpler life will be a better condition for understanding, then that is more than just attachment, isn't it? That's having a view of what are the conditions for developing understanding.
Yeah, it's a kind of view. It's true.
And is it a correct view?
No, if one doesn't have any expectation that leading a simpler life would lead to more understanding of realities. If one doesn't have that kind of idea, yeah, there's nothing wrong with leading a simpler life.
Just for its own sake.
Yeah. It's due to one's accumulation.
So the extent to which one manages to lead a simple life just depends on one's accumulation. So the life one is leading now is leading one's life according to accumulations.
Yeah.
I think, like you, Tadao, I have a lot of attachment to the Japanese living space, and no clutter, and very simple and easy to take care of. But I know it's attachment, a lot of attachment. And then if one's not in that environment, if one's in a cluttered, untidy, messy place with lots of things, then one's disturbed by it. So it shows the clinging and forgetting about reality at this moment, because actually whatever the lifestyle is still just visible objects seen, is still just sound heard, and the clinging comes in as usual.
Yeah.
It's good to know the truth. It's good to know that it is actually clinging rather than something worthy at those moments.
Yeah, it's attachment, but I cannot help.
No, it's just accumulated, like you say.
Yeah.
Whatever the object of attachment, it's still just attachment.
Now, can I ask you a question about thinking? Being aware of thinking is not an easy thing. And when we are having discussion like this, yeah, we have to think. It's not just listening. There is a thinking accompanied. And when it is said that one should be aware of thinking, how can one be aware of thinking? Does it mean that we should be aware of vitaka and vichara? But it's not an easy thing at all.
And of course, it's not I or you or anyone that is aware. So like in the beginning, we say when there's not seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and there's thinking. But then, like you say, we have to be more and more precise because vitaka arises with almost every chitta. After seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, there's thinking instantly.
Yeah.
But I think the point is when there's a reminder to be aware that it's just thinking, for example, it means like it's not the understanding, it's just thinking and thinking about the story, for example, thinking about the story of awareness, which is different from understanding the characteristic of awareness. And there can be understanding that it is thinking, not my thinking, just chittas which are thinking at those moments.
Okay. The point is not my thinking. It's just
That is the point. It's not my thinking. It's not your thinking. It's not your attachment. It's not anyone's attachment. They're just realities for a moment and then falls away instantly. Otherwise, there's always a story about how I think so much or this or that, but it's none of it is mine. It's just moments of seeing, moments of thinking, not belonging to anyone.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And Tadao, it's not your desiring for a simpler life either.
What does
Just
it
what
mean?
is.
It's just what it is.
Just attachment that arises and falls away instantly, not yours or Zita's or anyone's.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And just on the question of thinking, when we are thinking about this or that during the day, as there can be many trains of thought going on in our head about what happened earlier or what we're going to do later or what comes next, or is it time for this or that, all that kind of thinking, as I understand it, that is citta, consciousness, that is thinking. It's not specifically the mental factor of vitaka, because the thoughts that go through one's head are the object of consciousness. And so thinking is a kind of experiencing. And that's, it is a reality, the reality of citta. And that's why it can be the object of awareness.
Okay, so are you saying that it's nothing, it's not to do with vitaka and vichara?
Well, when we say that vitaka is thinking, again, as we were talking earlier about mental factors and their functions, this has to be understood in the context of a single moment of consciousness. So vitaka has the function of, it's said of striking the object. And that is different from what we mean by thinking. When we talk about thinking conventionally, we're not referring to vitaka mental factor, we're referring to the citta that thinks, as opposed to the citta that, for example, experiences an object through the sense door. And even now, as we are looking at the screen or listening to words spoken, that there is no awareness of visible object or sound, but what we seem to be seeing, what we seem to be hearing are people and things or words and so forth, music or whatever it is. There's thinking involved in that too, because it is thinking which conceptualizes about the visible object that is experienced or the sound that is heard.
So, Tadao, When you were earlier, when you mentioned Vitaka Vichara, I was thinking that one of the problems, I mean, everyone, most of us, I do have, is that when we hear about these different Chaitasikas, then we want to understand them each, but that's impossible. And actually, we actually make it harder for the possibility of understanding arising in the moment, because understand whatever appears now. And it's only what appears can be understood, not the idea that there are so many Chaitasikas and we need to understand all. No, I think that's not the way. It's just understanding what appears.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I really do not understand what Kun Jonathan said. That is, thinking can be done without vitaka and vichara.
No, he's not saying that. Because that's one of the thoughts that came into my mind, because even I like to think about thinking as something that is the chitta is doing, rather than the different chaitasikas, because that's what our life is. We see the difference between moments of just seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and the thinking which follows. And that association we make is with the chitta itself, not thinking in terms of chaitasikas. So yes, according to text, as John just said, Vittaka Vichara arises with almost all chittas except the 10, right? So it's there. So it's there even in thinking. But what appears, what becomes apparent is that the chitta is thinking, not, there's no idea about this Chetasika, that Chetasika.
Okay.
I have a question, Sukin. What you just said, so the thinking, the vitaka that arises takes the object that the citta experiences, doesn't it? So this is kind of cleared up a bit about thinking for me also, that it is the citta. The citta is, as Achan has said, the citta is the chief experiencer. So yes, we have Jetasikas arising with it, but I've also been a bit confused about thinking. You know, there's thinking in reality, and then there's thinking in concepts. So those concepts, well, it's citta taking concepts as a reality. No, they can't be a reality. It's difficult. It's a difficult area, I think. But what John said about citta having the object, it's a little bit more clear than sort of focusing in on vitaka.
And just to add one more comment, so what we take now for seeing is actually thinking about the visible object, because what we are seeing are people and things, images of people and things, and that can only result from thinking, because seeing does not experience images of people and things, it experiences visible object. And it's thinking that from those visible objects creates the idea that what is being seen are people and things.
And thinking can think about anything. Thinking can think about anything, realities, concepts, any kind of fantasy. So the thinking is real, but the concepts are imagined or thought about.
Well, when the object of thinking is a concept, for instance, does vitaka has, I guess I'm overthinking this, but does vitaka would touch the object? Okay, for instance, let's take, we take seeing now, what we take for seeing now is actually thinking. So that would be, that case, would that be vitaka touching the object
Vitaka leads to that object. So
leads to
no matter to that concept at that moment,
okay, so
Vitaka or the concept, whatever is experienced at any moment, other than at seeing, hearing, and so on, the Vitaka is there leading the citta to that object.
And these are jittas in the mind door processes that follow the sense door processes. And they're accompanied by vitaka. And vitaka is performing the function it usually performs.
Yeah.
Without vitaka, there couldn't be any experience by the citta or the other citta seekers of that concept, of that idea at that moment.
Yeah, okay.
Let's bring Ajahn back into the discussion. So Ajahn, I don't know if you could follow everyone's comments, but the topic was about, well, the first topic was Tadal's discussion about simple life and attachment. And the second topic was about thinking and vitaka and awareness of thinking.
Can't hear you, Ajahn.
We can't hear you, Ajahn. Can you hear us? Please go ahead, Ajahn. We can hear you now.
Something wrong with the phone now. Please say it again. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I just repeat, there were two topics that were being discussed. The first topic was about simple life, which we discussed last week, and how there can be understanding when there's any lifestyle, but sometimes we have the idea that a simple lifestyle is preferable, but usually it's clinging. And the second topic was about thinking and vitaka and awareness of thinking.
If there is the understanding of Dhamma clear enough, is there any difference no matter what style of life? No matter it is luxury life or simple life, they are all Dhammas, right? Different by conditions. That's all. This is letting go, the clinging to whatever we are thinking about. For example, if someone thinks about I can or I should live simple life, is there any attachment? And for those who live luxury life, but they have understanding of the truth, what is there?
I think these are questions for you, Tadal.
Yeah, I've got it.
What life would be? Simple life without understanding, or no matter what luxury life is, there is the understanding and letting go wrong understanding, like King Bimpisara. Would you prefer to be the one who lives simply but no understanding, or just like the king or anyone, but there can be understanding of the truth to the degree of enlightenment? It means that there's no clinging to no matter what reality is there, letting go because of panya, understanding that actually what is there is only conditioned to live simple life or luxury life by conditions.
I prefer a simpler life with panya. I do not want to have luxurious life. It's too much chores to take care of one's growth.
Can it mean that there's not enough understanding of the truth of no one and nothing? Different realities arising and falling away appear by conditions to be object. no selection, no will to have such I as before. Because even this very moment is conditioned. The broken voice, the voice, the clear voice, or whatever, by conditions. No idea about it. Otherwise, it's only I am thinking about this and that. No understanding of that which is not there when it's not there. Gone completely, absolutely, never to return, never to be found anywhere at all. So just to understand the truth, and at that very moment of understanding the truth, it's the moment of respecting the truth, the word of the Buddha, and expecting and respect Buddha according to his words, to the truth, as he's the one who has enlightened before the others, the first, and then taught for the others to consider, to be one's own understanding, not just follow his word, but to know whether his word is about that which is now appearing. Truth of it is like what he said. Seeing is rich or poor. Thinking, rich or poor. Right understanding is rich or poor. Only the truth can let go the wrong understanding and ignorance of that which is now appearing. No one, no me. That is the absolute truth that can be attained to enlighten the truth, which is now at this moment of seeing, at moment of hardness appearing. Penetrate the truth of that which just arises and falls away, the absolute truth. No one there at all. Now there is seeing, and we talk about seeing, but what about the nature which arises and experience? When that is a little bit understood, little by little, it can let go the idea of I see from seeing. Otherwise, still, I see all the time, and I heard seeing is not self. Seeing arises to see, that's all. That's not enough. It's only that level in one's life. If there's no understanding of the truth, that is the beginning. It's just like learning history, science, medical, and so on. Know what is what. Is that right understanding? Is that panya? Just the word of the reasonable thing. Only that. But what about the nature of that which now is covered up because not understanding from the very beginning that not at will is there by conditions. As long as there are conditions for whatever arises, it has to arise non-stop. And this is life. Keep on moving from moment to moment. What about the understanding of moment to moment at all? One by one at a time, no matter what we are talking about. Lifestyle and understanding.
Lucas, were you wishing to add your comment or bring anything up?
Yes, why not? Why not? Because I just come in now. But yeah, I agree with Tanajan 100% anyway.
Glad you can join us, Lucas.
I don't,
Thank you.
it's almost, our time's almost up.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Oh, Lucas, I'm sorry, I wasn't talking to you just then. I was just thinking about the discussion we were having just before John came in about thinking. Thinking and vitaka. I don't know whether there's time to get into that now or we save it for next week.
We've
Well,
still got a few minutes.
yes, okay.
So ask the question. Might give us time, give us something to think about in the meantime.
I'm trying to think up what the question
It's
is.
still 7 minutes. It's still 7 minutes to go. Anyway, it's 7 minutes to go.
Great. I think, Jonathan, you made a good comment. What we take now for seeing is actually thinking, because we are not understanding seeing directly, but there is immediate thinking about people and things, what is seen. And it's the citta that thinks, and vitaka, which leads the citta to the object of thinking, which can be a reality or a concept. So I guess I'd be interested in more discussion around the citta that thinks and vitaka.
The citta that thinks, like all jittas, experiences. So now the world, well, there is the idea of experiencing the world. And that idea is generally, if there's no awareness of the experiencing through different sense door experiences at the same time. So it seems as though seeing and hearing are occurring simultaneously and continuously. Now, we know from the Buddha's description of the world that that is not the case. And so it must be thinking, mustn't it? Because it's an impression, it's an idea. And whether the extent to which wrong view is involved is a separate issue. But the fact is, it's the function of thinking to conceptualize about what has been or what is being experienced through the sense doors. And if there weren't that conceptualizing, then sound that is heard would not be understood as words that have meaning, because one has to have learnt the language first to understand that words are being spoken and what they mean, right? Yeah. So we just know from considering it in this way that what is appearing at the present moment is what is being thought about, is the object of thinking rather than the object of experience, the actual experiencing at the different sense doors.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that helps.
So vitaka is just one of the mental factors that have to arise with the citta that thinks. There are many mental factors and they each perform a role. But again, like we were talking about with the factors in the development of understanding, whether those mental factors are ever going to appear, we just don't know. Awareness, we know it has a characteristic, but when understanding is being developed, what is appearing is the realities, and we know that they have characteristics too, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So we have to take the world and the present moment as it appears, without worrying too much or trying to overthink, to use your term, about the the mental factors that might be functioning. They're operating unseen, unnoticed. They will, as I understand it, pretty much always be that way, because what is going to be understood and what is in order for ignorance and wrong view to be eradicated is what appears. It's not as though we have to know all those mental factors in order for wrong view to be eradicated. It's what is appearing that needs to be understood, not what is not appearing.
John, would you like to add anything more before we finish?
Yes, I think that in order to understand the nature of reality as not self, this is the most important thing, no matter how much we know this or that about this and that. But what about the nature which is not self, is not known yet? That's why the other way is, no matter it is seeing, hearing, or thinking, it's only the reality which experiences an object, but different objects, that's all. The object is different, but the characteristic of that which experiences it is only that which experiences, no matter what is experienced through what doorway. That's why even thinking is the moment of that which thinks, not that which sees, to understand the distinction between that which experiences and that which cannot experience. Otherwise, the idea of self, the clinging to that moment is always there. Thinking of this, thinking about seeing, thinking about vitaka, thinking about that. But what is thinking? It's only that which experiences different objects. And now, no thought about vitaka, but thinking about another thing by conditions. That's why to understand the nature of that which is not self, because it arises and experiences an object. It is the way, the moment to let go the misunderstanding, the wrong understanding, and ignorance about thinking as something with vitaka and so on and so on. But what about that which is experienced? It's not self. It's conditioned to think because of many conditions. At that moment, there's not only vitaka, there is also sanya and other chitasika, phassa, and so on, unknown. But there's the idea about them all the time. But no matter it's vitaka or sanya or whatever, they are the reality which experienced by different ways, different quality, different function. But they are there together, unknown, until only one appears as object to be known as not self, because it's only that. That's why even the idea or the understanding of that which experiences, the nama, we use that word, and the rupa, another word we use for cannot experience, it's only the idea. But that way, the truth of it is that it cannot be changed, but its characteristic is not experienced directly, to have no doubt about it, because thinking more about this and that all the time. But what about that which experiences? If it's not known, it cannot go further, develop on and on, too deeply penetrating the truth of it, which arises and falls away. We just understand realities are conditioned. It arises and falls away all the time, from moment to moment. That's all. Is that enough? Is that can let go the idea of self? Only thinking and I think and the five khandhas as object of clinging is still there, because they do not appear as they are one by one at a time. To understand the truth, before there can be the more letting go of that which is clung from life to life, eons and eons, it takes quite a long time. But if there is only intellectual understanding, thinking about reasoning, what is what and how it comes and goes, what about the reality which is not self? It's hidden all the time at that very moment. But the point of study is understanding the absolute truth, which It's now. No one can make anything arise. It's there and gone, unknown. That's why learning to understand condition for its arises, just to understand the way it is, no self. And it can be the understanding that is not enough because it's only thinking, thought about conditions for its arising and so on. But what about the nature of that which is now things, not see? See, no matter it's what, it's that which experiences, no me. And if there can be the understanding clear about the point of study, to let go, because no understanding of that which appears, but all the words and condition understanding to let go, not just to wanting to understand more of this, more of that, on endlessly. No, go further than beginning to develop the understanding of just one reality at a time. That's why we keep on understanding just one word, and it can bring about more understanding of other words, like the word nama, that which experiences, not only seeing, thinking is the same, thinking, hearing, like it's the same. There must be object of that which experienced by different ways, by different forms and function. That's all. Just to learn to understand this moment, not to learn to think more about words and sorry about it. It has to be only that if it just be like that as before, thinking about all the time from moment to moment and then gone. And what about death? No understanding of that which we have learned about. It experiences. Without it, there's no life, there's no world. Is that true? Just consider, in order to let go, that the truth is not only remember the words, but to really study, beginning to understand that which is now appearing. And then there can be the other understanding of other reality when it's there only. For example, as we said, Sati, no matter how much talk about it, but when it's Satipatthana, it doesn't show up. It's not apparent at all because it's not there as object. But when it's the moment of it's there, understanding of it is there, as different from moment without sati. What we learned becomes true at moment of understanding what is there now. From moment to moment, from word to word, little by little, until it can penetrate the truth. Because Buddha taught about the different level of understanding. Vipassana jnana without satipatthana, impossible. And satipatthana, what condition? See, tira sanya, the sanya which is so confidence of the truth, very firm understanding, not not just thinking about it, but no matter what is there, sanya remembers not self. It's there. It's not permanent. Can condition moment of no one, no self at moment of touching now. Now, see, or it's now. And when it's there, no doubt about anothernness, no one there, no thought beforehand, no expectation, what would be next moment, what would be next object of experiences. That's why anything which is real can be object of satipatthana. But we think about kayanupassana, chittanupassana, vedananupassana, dhammanupassana. But what about everything, no matter what is there? It is kaya or vedana or chitta or dhamma. But to learn more that is there, inside or outside, at any moment thinking about the other's feeling, the sadness, crying, so on. Can that be moment of understanding the truth that no one is thinking about that? And it has to be so natural to show its anatterness. Nobody can direct it, control it, or make it arise at all. So the point is not just understand the story of what is now appearing, but the nature of it is there too, any time, to panya only, which begins to understand the truth from moment to moment by conditions.
Thank you, Ajahn. That's very helpful.